Hello, I'm Cleydson Barbosa and I am a Portuguese native speaker. But wait, don't worry. I'll be as neutral as possible about that, okay? So the first thing that you have to have in your mind before you choose between the Portuguese from Brazil and the Portuguese from Portugal is: what is your goal? Why are you interested about learning Portuguese, or even just curious about it? You have to think, what is the main reason why you are learning Portuguese? Because I know Portuguese is not like English, which everyone is supposed to know, or Spanish, which is very popular as well. I know Portuguese is a very specific choice, but one thing that many people don't know is that Portuguese can be even more specific. Why? Well, in English, sometimes when foreigners are learning that as a second language, when they're going to choose which English they should learn, is like, I don't know if I focus more in the American English or the British English. Well, actually, if you learn one way or the other, it doesn't make a lot of difference in speaking or understanding, etc. It's just an accent or expressions or something. But with Portuguese, that's a bit different, because the Portuguese from Portugal and the Portuguese from Brazil are two separate, different, specific, parallel languages. Yes, this is not just like the English from the United States or English from England. No, these are, as I told you, two different languages. As a matter of fact, when you go to choose one language in any device or game or anything, you have to choose between Portuguese from Brazil or Portuguese from Portugal. The books that we have here in Brazil have a different translation from the book from Portugal. So if a book is launched in Portugal, if a movie is launched in Portugal, if any media piece is launched in Portugal, you have to have a separated, a totally different launch in Brazil, because each one has its Portuguese. And as I told you, this is not about expressions or accents, not only that, because if I could compare the English to Portuguese, I would say something like, in Portuguese, we have a whole country with different kinds of Brazilian Portuguese. Okay, so for example, in São Paulo, you would speak something like the English from New York, okay? And here, where I live, in Recife, which is in the northeast of Brazil, which is in the coast of the northeast, this would be something like the Portuguese from England, okay? This is not about all the details. No, I would say, if you would compare with difference, etc. But São Paulo is very near to Rio, and the Portuguese from Rio I would compare to the English from Australia, for example. Yes, so you have many different kinds of Brazilian Portuguese in the whole country, you know? And if you go overseas, you have a different language. It's Portuguese as well, but here in Brazil, we have all the African influences, all the Indian influences, etc., etc., etc. So, okay, Cleydson, I understood these are two different Portugueses, and so what would you suggest me to learn? As you are a Brazilian, you are going to tell me that the Brazilian Portuguese is the better, right? Well, actually, I would say that according to your goal, you're going to connect which is the best for you. As I told you in the beginning of the video, you have to focus on which is the main reason why you are learning this language or why you're curious about, etc., etc., etc. Because this is a very specific, if you have a Spanish notion, so it's going to be easier for you, but if you're starting from scratch, that can be a huge drag. So I would say that if you want to know or if you want to get involved with the Portuguese because of its story about, for example, Portugal, if you like Portugal, if you like medieval literature, or if you want to be closer to that part of Europe, or even, okay, here is the biggest different, or even if you want to practice more about grammar, about all the rules well applied, I would indicate to you, the Portuguese from Portugal. Because what are the good things about that and what are the not so good things about that, okay? The good thing is that they speak a proper Portuguese. They're used to adapt things to work right in the language, okay, to fit in the best possible way to a well-structured language. Okay, what's the not so good thing about that is that the amount of people who speak the Portuguese from Portugal is way little compared to the people who speak the Portuguese from Brazil. Other thing is that it's a bit more confusing to understand. So if a Portuguese from Portugal speaks, a Brazilian can barely understand because their way to speak is a bit harder, okay, in Brazil and in the Latin American countries. We have a softer musical way to speak according to the foreigners, okay? And the people from Portugal, they speak more, it's harder, it's more, a bit harder to speak and to understand if you are an outsider, okay? But if you are Brazilian and you speak Portuguese, people from Portugal will probably understand you because the Portuguese from Brazil, for them, is something natural. It's something normal because they consume a lot of media from Brazil as well. And for them, it's something easy. Okay, what's the best thing about the Portuguese from Brazil? The amount of people who you can talk to, you can relate that to the South America Spanish because it sounds very similar, so you have a whole map to explore. It's kind of easier to speak, just open your mouth and sing, okay? But what is the bad thing about speaking the Brazilian Portuguese? I would say two not so good things, okay? First, it's going to be harder to understand the people from Portugal. So if you study or if you learn the Portuguese from Portugal, you can understand people from Brazil. And you're going to speak a proper Portuguese, okay? But if you learn the Portuguese from Brazil, you are going to get used to our way of speaking it wide open and soft and passionate. And if you listen to someone from Portugal, you probably can have difficulties to understand that. Do you get it? And in Brazil, you can learn it easily because we are not so good with the proper Portuguese, you know. We learn something and we speak very relaxed, you know. We don't care a lot about grammar, which is a bad thing because of education stuff, you know, study-wise. If you want to understand more about the education from Brazil, see the link down below in the description. I made a video about that, okay? So you can understand Brazil and Brazilians, etc. But here, okay, you're going to apply less effort and the gain will be huge because you can speak with no many restrictions about rules, okay? But the thing is, it can be poor compared to the culture, okay? Compared to the grammar. Okay, I don't want to extend so much, so if you have any questions, please leave it that down below in the comments. And please tell me, why are you thinking about that? Why did you came to this video? Please leave a comment down below in the comment section, okay? And I'll do my best to answer. And if you want to join our free community on Facebook where people from Brazil want to learn English, we can do this interchange, okay? So while you are already speaking English, you can help people. So people can help you with Portuguese, and I'll do my best. Subscribe to this channel so you will always have more videos. You can also suggest any video themes about Brazil, Portuguese, Spanish. I don't know. You let me know, okay? Like this video and see you next video.